Peace, everyone. How you doing? Welcome to Israel Doctrine's Google Hangout. I'm your host, Carl Albert, and you have now entered into the Hangout. The brothers said they need a little time before they make it over, so I'm gonna start the show off anyway. What we have here is a brother from Dimona, Israel. I'm gonna let you hear from him firsthand, who he is, give you his whole name and title and everything else. I like to allow my guests to do that, so it can be more personal, you know. But a brother from Dimona, Israel, he's a Israelite elder. He's an elder over there, a spokesman for the Kingdom of Yah, KOY. We're gonna talk about their past and their present, things that's going on. We're gonna talk a little bit about their doctrine and their beliefs. We're gonna talk a little bit about, you know, things that they seeing from over there in Dimona that's going on over here in America. You know, we're gonna talk about how they made it over to Dimona, Israel, from Chicago, so on and so forth. Their journey, once again, their past. You know, how they got there and everything. Like I said, he carry a title and everything. I'll let him explain to you what it is. I'm honored to have him on as a guest and talk with him, seeing that we don't get too many Israelite elders coming out and speaking to the community. So, you know, this is a real good exclusive. And I see he has made it to the chat and everything. So, you know, we got the elder with us. How you doing, brother?
Oh, he started up. Hey.
1 second, Israel.
Okay. Yeah, I started up too. So if you just mute yourself and unmute yourself when y'all get everything worked. I was just introducing it. Didn't want to be too late.
Shalom, Brother Carl. You can hear me, Brother Carl?
Yes, I can hear you. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing super. Shalom, shalom. My shalom ka.
Most definitely. I was telling the audience that I like to let, you know, the guests tell them, you know, the name and give your title and everything, and give a little brief history about yourself before we get into the interview. So if you you know, take the time out and introduce yourself to the, you know, the audience, I appreciate that.
Certainly. Allow me first to give all honor and praises to the Holy One of Israel, to his anointed Ben-Ami, HaMashiach, to the princes, ministers, crown brothers, sisters, saints, beloved family around the globe. I greet you, Shalom Aleichem. I am Minister Ahmadiel, Sar Ahmadiel ben Yehuda. I'm the national spokesperson for the African Hebrew Israelites here in Jerusalem, in Dimona. I am attached to the Ministry of Divine Information here. And so my portfolio involves the collection, analyzing, and dissemination of information about the community and our relationships with the world at large and here in this land. I'm a spokesperson, editor, writer, researcher, historian, trained here in Israel under Prince Shaliach ben Yehuda, who was the headmaster and dean of the School of the Prophets, which is our college level Institute of Higher Learning. Was born and raised in Washington, D.C. Came to Israel in 1978 for a visit. I realized after being awakened to my identity as an Israelite in 1975, I thought that I was possibly at the cutting edge of the movement until I, you know, continued to learn and grow. And then when I found out that the brothers and sisters had left in 1967, I realized that I was woefully late. At least that's how I felt about things. And so in 77, I actually was able to connect with some of the brothers and sisters that had been sent to the DC, Washington, DC area to open a jurisdiction there. And the following year, 78, again, I was able to visit for a short period. And that's when I solidified. I mean, I made up my mind that this was home. I didn't get back till 1980 for on a more or less permanent basis. and I was here until 91 at that point, until I was sent back to the U.S. on an assignment. So been back and forth over the years, been back and forth since 91, in and out of the U.S. I'm also a liaison to our communities in Southern Eden, South Africa, also the Democratic Republic of Congo, and I've spent considerable time in Ghana. I was part of a team that went into Ghana back in 2005 to 2007. We worked with the Ministry of Health there, Ghana's Ministry of Health. We helped the Minister of Health to transform their paradigm from curative to preventive, and that's a whole chapter that I could talk about at length. But I'm servant. I'm your servant. I'm your I'm here at your service, and I appreciate you reaching out for us. And so greetings to the family there.
I appreciate you coming on too. Now, could you give us a little background of the history of the community and stuff, how it got started? You pretty much gave us a date, you know. So if you could take us through a chronology of the past and bring us, you know, to the future, the present, that y'all current state that y'all in over there, because a lot of people are ignorant and haven't heard much from you all, you know. So if you could give them some background on that, I appreciate them statements.
Well, naturally, you know, not I don't want to assume too much, but I'm sure that the majority of your audience are of Israelite identity and persuasion. But nevertheless, I do want to say that naturally Ben-Ami, in having a vision in 1966, that vision did not occur in a vacuum. In other words, as a child, having been taught that he had a connection to this land, and as a part of the Beta Cultural Center there in Chicago in the early 60s, Ben-Ami's vision, Ben-Ami's calling did not occur in a vacuum. If we just continued to go back naturally, we could include the Nat Turners and the Denmark Veseys and others who had bits and pieces, and of course the songs of our in those slave in the slave era, the spirituals, the only form of expression that we were allowed to have, singing about this land, singing about the River Jordan, singing about Jericho, Jerusalem, and Canaan's land. All those were bits and pieces that framed and that colored our awareness, and that led up to Ben-Ami receiving his vision. So just wanted to preface all that with that statement. And of course, Ben-Ami, being a member of a Beta Cultural Center, he used to ask the elders, when would we, as the Israelites in the captivity, when was it our time to return back to our land here? And invariably, the response was always, it's not time yet. We're waiting for this or that, and the ships of Tarshish, we're waiting for some other kind of movement of Yah in the midst of our people. And so he would pray and meditate on it. And he was very troubled. You talk about 1966, that was the outbreak of the Watts and the Newark riots. In that particular winter, there was the record snowstorm that completely paralyzed Chicago. And so on his bed one afternoon, he's visited by the angel Gabriel. And he's given what he has called a 45-second vision. And in it, he was directed that the following year he should make the Exodus, that he should lead the Exodus of our people back to the Promised Land, and that, and that's basically what he received. And so naturally, when hearing these messages and wondering what was going to happen when he shares them with his associates and friends, and not wanting to be ostracized, he wrestled with it for some short period, but then he began to share. And those around him, those other members, a certain core membership from a Beta, followed him and indeed brought information that assisted in that movement, that they were able to, I think, weigh in and bring their bricks, so to speak, to say, yes, well, we do need to leave, and we're with you. And when we do leave, that the prophecies say that we should return the way that we left. And so we began looking in West Africa for a suitable place for us to return. It was well known. If anything, we always knew we were, we hailed from West Africa. At least that's the way that we arrived in the Western Hemisphere. But when you began looking in West Africa, there was Liberia, and whose constitution required them to assist us, required them to actually provide us with assistance. And indeed, they made good on that when we sent brothers and sisters over to scout it out. They came back with glowing reports. And indeed, when by 1967, when the first group started leaving out of the Chicago area, we were granted some land, access to land, and some small assistance on the part of the state of the country of Liberia at the time. And so by 67, Ben-Ami had managed to convince nearly 350 brothers and sisters to leave. We went into the interior of the country. We had to clear land, clear bush. We were equipped, and I don't mean very well equipped, but we were equipped with Sears and Roebuck tents. Many of you in a certain generation will remember the Roebuck, and I don't know if it's urban legend or not, but Roebuck is said to have been the black man in the relationship. But the Sears and Roebuck tents that we had tested out in the nature preserves in the Illinois area. We went up into the interior, cleared with machetes a suitable area, and quickly realized that those tents were not quite as waterproof as they were billed to be. Within the next few months, we realized that those tents were dry rotting, and the little monies that we had saved up, the monies that were being spent on saltine crackers and sardines often, and the white rice and other provisions beginning to run out. The endurance of the excuse me a minute, the coming of certain kind of malnutrition and maladies that are resulted from the malnutrition in the community, not eating properly, coming with the mindset that food items grew on the stores of the local supermarket, and that reality all set in and crashed upon us. The fact that we had children, telling children not to go down and play by the wells that we had dug, children being children, playing down by the wells, little Kana falls in the well, and the children are afraid to come and tell us, as children can be. By the time we found out that Kana had fallen in the well, Kana had perished. And so these are some of the realities: the malaria, the dysentery, again, malnutrition, the experiences with black and green mamba snakes. These were not driver ants that would come through the community, come through the campsite, and you would think it's raining outside, a heavy monsoon type rain, which was quite a frequent occurrence as it was. But sometimes it wouldn't be rain, it would be ants falling out of the trees on top of the tents. And so all of these were the experiences of the next 2.5 years that the community endured and had to endure in what we considered to be a wilderness experience, a cleansing, a humbling, that we were taken into the wilderness to be humbled. And I don't think there's any more humbling moment than the one I recall of Ben-Ami and his childhood friend, Prince Gabriel, who had come through the ranks together and journeyed hand in hand into the wilderness. And so together they were hungry one day, and between them didn't have a single penny to purchase. With a penny, you could have purchased a whole bunch of bananas, and at least you would have been able to sustain yourselves in that way. And so between them on that particular day, they had no money between them, and just humbling. And then the time that a Liberian came through the camp and looked around and saw the what we had interpreted as being weeds in the camp growing around, he said, "Listen, this is good for iron, and this is good. You can eat this. You can chop this." And so again, humbling, and that rock bottom those rock bottom moments in the wilderness set the foundation for those who were able to endure. And we put it in the example of many people may sign up to join the Army or the Marines, but you know there's a washout coming. You know that there's a mustering of those who go to the next level and those who can't. And we hold no animosity. Ben-Ami has said this often. He said there's no animosity towards those that decided to go back. Not everybody is equipped to deal with those kind of issues and whatever. I personally didn't go through that particular experience. My particular feeling is that Yah calls us when we are ready, when he needs us. I don't do snakes very well. And so I take my boys out 3 nights and we go camping up in the Galilee on the Kinneret, on the banks of the Kinneret, and that's sufficient for me. But to have endured 2.5 years, we give kol agavo, we give all due respect to those 138 souls who did endure through that 2.5-year period and then eventually come to the land of Israel in 69. One note I want to make, tying in certain events. Ben-Ami's vision in 1966, 1967, we make the exodus into Liberia. 1968, we're in the interior of Liberia. And on the other side, you have Dr. King, and you have the continuing unfolding of the civil rights movement and the positive struggles for our peoples on that side. And you have the memo of Gay Edgar Hoover, and I do mean Gay Edgar Hoover, who wrote Prevent the Rise of a Messiah, who could electrify and lead our people. And so they're looking closely and very keenly at Dr. King. They had already, Malcolm was already off the scene. Medgar Evers was off the scene. They reasoned that Elijah Muhammad was too old to be such a personage. They're watching all of the other movements and meetings, and they're attempting to foment division in the midst of them. And so Dr. King on April the 3rd of 1968, in Memphis, very frustrating time for him, frustrating time with the Memphis garbage workers strikes, certain infighting, certain revelations on his own part, where he had confided with Harry Belafonte that sometimes we might be integrating into a burning house. So obviously his views about where he was leading our people were being transformed. And so at a very frustrating moment, he is in Memphis, and he really didn't want to come out that night, but Ralph Abernathy, in showing up at Mason Temple that night, called him back at the Lorraine Motel, and told him, "Martin, the people need to hear you." So reluctantly, on a very stormy, rainy night, he comes out and speaks, and that is, of course, his mountaintop speech, where at the end he says that he may not get there with us as a people. He may not get there with us. Longevity has its place, but we as a people will get to the promised land. And of course, Dr. King was assassinated the very next day, less than 24 hours later. We find out later from Claude Pepper's book, the attorney for James O'Ray, that the U.S. Army had a domestic intelligence, a domestic team in Memphis that day, and they had orders to liquidate their target. And so, making such a statement, I firmly have to believe that the U.S. government felt that they had their man, so to speak. And of course, King is assassinated the next day, April the 4th. Well, 1 month after that, in May, 1 month later, the first 2 brothers, Ben-Ami being one and Prince Kiskiyahu the other, leave Liberia and come to Israel. Prince Kiskiyahu is left here by himself. And Ben-Ami returns back to Liberia to continue the process of gathering what's needed and raising the funds to get the remainder of the brothers and sisters from Liberia to Israel. And so some might look at that as a coincidence that 1 month later that we fulfill both the prophets' dreams, or the prophets' prophecies that we would return to our land, but also in keeping with Dr. King's vision. Now we're in Liberia. We're listening to transistor radios. No one knew the context in which what he had said the night before. That really wasn't what had made the news. What made the news was simply that he had been assassinated. But it was later that people were able to put together the fact that he was talking about getting to the promised land. And so we would say that none of those circumstances, the 66 vision, the 67 Exodus, the 68 assassination, and Dr. King's vision himself, and the 68 realization of our returning back to this land, none of that was coincidental. In fact, it was quite providential. So, and you can stop me at any time if you want, but that brings us up into the land when we talk about 1968, 69. By 69, the remainder of the brothers and sisters were here in this land. We arrived and we were initially welcomed under the then law of return. And that,
okay, well, I would like to ask, when you say he had a vision, had he dealt with any other camps or any other individuals that came to the awareness that, you know, the African Americans or the Negro was the lost sheep of Israel? Because sometimes people get it a little twisted and say, well, these people came out of this camp, or these people came from here. So do you recall anything that tied them to anyone else before the vision or after the vision?
Sure. I mean, there were sure he had elders in the midst. Abeda had a group of elders. He was one of a rotating, as I recall being taught, that he was one of a rotating group of elders who were teaching. You had a brother named Casey. You had I think Rabbi Hodges was part of that circle in those days. And so certainly there were other teachers, there were other influences, but again, it was one of the things that he and a core group were not settled about in terms of the responses that they got relative to why it wasn't time for us to move and what would make it time for us to move. And so in questioning that and meditating and praying on that, that's when he received the vision that directed him to make that move. But that, you know, these are questions that we might want to direct to Prince Gabriel and Prince Kiskiyahu and others who were actually part of the cadre of men around him at that time.
Okay, most definitely. I just thought I'd ask and see what you know about that. Now,
Sure.
So y'all move from Liberia and y'all go to what part of Africa? What part of Africa?
From Liberia, we went to Israel. We actually caught flights out of Liberia, West Africa, and returned back to Israel from that point. And of course, we regard Israel as Northeast Africa. We sit on the African tectonic plate. I was in Jerusalem today. I was taking to some brothers from Ghana, brothers and a sister in Jerusalem today, and I was questioned by an Israeli, you know, who didn't like some of the things that he overheard me saying. But you know, we don't flinch about the fact that this is Northeast Africa. We're on the African tectonic plate. Hebrew is an Afro-Semitic language. You know, Israel may participate in the EuroLeague and basketball and Eurovision song contests and whatever, but one thing is very clear, that this is Northeast Africa, and we don't bite our tongue about it. And in fact, what I was saying was that Israel has to develop a little more warmer welcome to the Africans who continue to knock on Israel's door, be it in the personage of the Ethiopian community, the Beit Yisrael community, or the Lemba coming out of South Africa, or the Ashanti, the Bassa out of Cameroon, our brothers and sisters throughout the Western Hemisphere. We're going to continue to be knocking on the doors of the state of Israel, and they're going to have to develop a little warmer welcome for us, because we're the ones who are going to bring some sensibility into the government policies here. We're the ones who are going to bring a sense of balance. We're going to be the ones to bring Israel back into the fulfillment of the mandate, prophetic mandate that we have to be a light unto the nations. And we make no bones about that. We find ears, we find those who have the ear to hear that and can actually understand that. And they, you know, we govern our relationships with them according to how they respond to us. Doesn't mean that everyone is welcoming, of course not. But we have friends and allies who want to see and realize that that we need a change on the planet. We need some radical new. We need a radical new direction, and the direction of our people cannot change until the message changes.
Most definitely. I believe that. I think I'm part of that message too. That's why I'm asking any questions. So now, what is your views on the political philosophy of Pan-Africanism and Zionism? And could you give us your viewpoint on the two and how they differ in ways or how they similar in ways, your knowledge of that?
Sure. Allow me to say this. I'm working actually on it started off as a presentation that I was due to give at the 8th Pan-African Congress that was held in Ghana this past, might have been a year and a half, 2 years ago. And there's a tendency among the Pan-Africanist movement and even Afrocentrists generally to deny our the spiritual roots of those movements. I find many of them to be aspiritual in many ways. And certainly when you start talking about Marxist, Leninist thought and what have you, and those types of ideas have kind of overtaken some of the leadership in the Pan-Africanist movement. And we understand why. We understand that they feel greatly let down and disappointed by organized religion. But the reality is, when you go back to the early Pan-African idea, that those men and women that were deeply involved in the authors and the proponents of that, they were very much spiritual brothers and sisters. The church of 120, 150 years ago, the church was a quite different institution than what it is today. So when you talk about a Bishop Henry McNeil Turner of the AME Church, who in 1900 went on record as saying that the African in America must realize there is no future for this country, you know, for the Negro in this country. He said that any man that has the sense of an animal must realize that. And so that echoes for me Isaiah. You know, an ox knows his owner and an ass his master's crib, but my people do not consider Israel, you know. And so the early Pan-Africanist thinkers were very much aligned with the idea that the Creator had to be front and center, had to be on the cutting edge of our movement, and that it was pointing us out of that captivity. It was never to be that we would find comfort there. And so we're very much aligned with the idea of Pan-Africanism. We know that we are our people were scattered all through the world, but primarily into Africa. It doesn't make sense that the Israelites would have ended up north of Israel when you're talking about military pressures from the Greeks, the Romans, and later the Crusaders. That doesn't make any sense at all, that they would find themselves in Poland and Russia and European areas. Indeed, they would have fled south, and you don't have to be a military strategist or have attended ROTC classes to know that. And so when we begin looking at all throughout Africa, you find the remnants of our people, you find those cultural similarities. And that's you know, that's Pan-Africanism, you know, and so we are at the cutting edge of that. We're very much involved in that. When you talk about Zionism, in my records, my research has shown me that one of the earliest Pan-Africanist thinkers, names, hold on a moment. You got to forgive me. I've been out on the road 12 hours today, bro. We left early this morning and went out to Jerusalem and then to Jericho, and I was taking the group of Ghanaians with me today. Had a great time on the land, by the way, and certainly look forward to having you come and be taken around your land, you know. Yeah. But Martin Delaney, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We here just, you know, chilling. So if you have to reach up and grab something or whatever, just feel free to just let it flow.
It came to me, Martin Delaney, I think it was Martin L. Delaney. Martin Delaney was referring to our people in America as Black Zion, if I'm not mistaken, 20 years before Theodore Herzl was born. But of course, if you're writing history books, you know, then you can write it the way you want to write it. And of course, he becomes the father of Zionism. We also have in our possession a photograph of Theodore Herzl on the boat that brought him to Israel for the very first time. And there's a brother sitting there, can't be 5 feet away from him, who's wearing the garments of this region. He looks like a Palestinian, so to speak, an Afro-Palestinian. He's very comfortable sitting there on the deck of the boat. And if you go to the Museum of Jewish History in Tel Aviv, Beit Hatfutzot as it's known, they have the same photograph in an exhibition of theirs, but in their multi-million-dollar exhibition, they didn't have room for the brother. They cropped him out. And so we have the evidence of the things that, you know, bits and pieces of this shattered puzzle, this shattered picture that has to be and is being reassembled, that speaks to our presence here in this land, our ties to this land, the fact that we are Zionists, we are spiritual Zionists. Although I did find out later, after thinking I was defining that even amongst the European Jews, that they do have a category called spiritual Zionism. But my point was simply to say that, and I think it does play into a sense of agreement with many of the different streams of Judaism, that our presence here had to rely on the Creator. It was not going to be with the sanctioning of the League of Nations or the United Nations or any other world body. It had to be by the hand of the Most Holy, by the Holy One of Israel, that our presence would be here, would be maintained here. And that's our position, that as long as we are aligning ourselves with the Creator and His desires and wishes, His interests on this planet, in this land and on this planet, that He then will preserve and protect us. And so we are Zionists in that sense. And we have, you know, I think our presence here speaks for itself, in the sense that, you know, many have said over the years that it wasn't time, and that, I mean, I've heard all kinds of interpretations, but nevertheless, we are here, we are a presence, we are we've set a precedent, and we would simply say this has been done and can't be undone in terms of the laying of the foundation for what is to come for our people. Now,
y'all done had some scholars, academic people from amongst the community write books and do things on this. Could you give us a little history of that? Because I think a lot of people over here, even the Kemetic people and Egyptologists and, you know, different people over here fail to realize that it's been academics or books and literature and stuff coming from that community explaining certain stances and viewpoints from the community view.
Certainly. You know, me personally, I've always been from my childhood, I've always been a very cerebral kind of person. You know, I've always been a reader. I didn't get good grades, mind you, but I learned a lot. And it was because of my interests. It was, once you learn how to read, you really can teach yourself anything. And so I've always been one in the community who's been a researcher, been fond of books, been a collector of information. You know, we have books that in our exhibition that we put together on our connections, African Hebrew Israelites and the connections to this land and what have you. We have books that we pull one line out of a book on page 300 or something out of a book and make it make sense in terms of the bigger picture, like I said. And so we have a team, we have a group of brothers and sisters who sit on the National Redemptive Scholarship Body. And we make it our business to discuss various issues, to bring evidence to the table, to sort things out, and to produce works. I have no less than 10 right now, and I'm committed in this near season to getting some of them out. I've actually got a little plan. I'll be doing an internal, what do you call it? Fund, what do they call it? Crowdfunding. So stay tuned. I'll be sending some information your way on how that those who understand as it says in the Apocrypha, that the wisdom of the scribe depends on the opportunity for leisure. Not that we would be laying on beaches, but you have to have some quiet time sometimes to go and read and ponder and think and write. And so that's what I'm looking forward to doing. But over the years, we have indeed, naturally, Ben-Ami has written numerous books. I was blessed to be one of the senior editors over the years and working with him on those writings. We have Prince Gabriel, who wrote the history of moving out of America and into Liberia. His first book, The Impregnable People, ends with our arrival in Israel. And so he's written part 2. I must say, this is one of the things that's on my table that I have to continue to work with. And that's why I need some time to finish that. His part 2, which I think brings us all the way up to 1980. Myself, I've worked with John Jackson out of University of Pennsylvania, who's a cultural anthropologist and a visual anthropologist. He wrote the book Thin Description about the community, the African Hebrew Israelites. He called it Ethnography and the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem. Of course, we know about James Landing's book. An entire chapter in there about the community and about just, I mean, talk about a great piece in terms of mining, the mining of all of this information and compiling and putting it together for our access. So numerous people have weighed in over the years. I was working very closely with my brother in Atlanta, Asa Hilliard. Unfortunately, Asa had gone to Egypt. He was one of the preeminent Afrocentric scholars. He actually was very involved in the Afrocentric curriculum development and laying out those things, but he was a teacher at Georgia State. And he and I used to be he was a regular customer at Soul Vegetarian in Atlanta, and we had a chance to sit and talk quite frequently. And we had actually planned to do a joint tour for conscious Africans in America, that they would journey with him to Egypt, and we would leave Egypt and come to Israel, and I would handle the portion in Israel. Unfortunately, during one of his last journeys to Egypt, he contracted malaria and actually died there. But he was one of the few, I think, Afrocentric scholars who wasn't afraid of crossing over the Suez Canal. And you know this to be a fact, that many of the, when you talk about the consciousness of Afrocentricity, that even the symbolism, the maps, the jewelry that they wear, they stop at the Suez Canal, which is absurd. Even Egypt has reclaimed the Sinai Peninsula, after, I think it was 1982, they got that back. And so, but I can only attribute that to a spiritual block, that somehow they feel like we have identified with Israel as being some white people. And that the Bible, of course, is a white man's book. But as I tell people all the time, you're talking about a book that has more than 1,400 references to Egypt and Ethiopia alone. And how could such a book be a white man's book? So, and we living in this land, Brother Carl, we living here, we are able to take you and show you the people that live in this land that look like you, that they'll never show you on CNN or BBC or National Geographic. And don't get me started about National Geographic. They're some of the most conniving and cutthroat heathens on the planet relative to maintaining the conspiracy to prevent us from linking back up with our culture here in this land. We got them hands down. We'll be sharing some information about that soon. But nevertheless, we know that the great crime that was committed in this land, this transformation of an culture and land from black to white, and the attempts to cover that up. We are like CSI agents. We're spiritual CSI agents, and we can come into the scene, the crime scene, and we find the DNA evidence that proves our links back to this land. We find the hair over in the corner. And what I mean by in the corner, I'm talking about different villages in the land where you have very, very strong African presence. You have in Jericho, maybe 20% of the people live in Jericho look like us. When you talk about Prison Gate Street in the old city of Jerusalem, when you talk about the Wailing Wall, the Western Wall Plaza that is very, very nicely cleared out, literally cleared out in 1967 after the 6-day war, less than 2 days after Israel liberated the old city. A whole section of the community there was bulldozed, razed, and I have a photograph that shows that this in 1922 was labeled the Moors Quarter. And you and I know that the Moors were the African people that lived in this land. And so we are able to, we've got so much information that we want to continue to make available to get it out. But of course, the revolution will not be televised. And in many cases, the revolution won't be published until we get a little greater company of those. We said the great was the company that published the word. And so we're putting together teams by which we can begin to get more and more of this information. So we're good.
All right. Well, I don't know what that was, but obviously it was an interruption. So do you advocate, or when you get a chance to show people that the Israelites or the Hebrews, or however one would like to say it, that their spiritual system is quote unquote an African based spiritual system, seeing that you use the term African, Hebrew, Israelite, and I understand how they all go together. I'm not a big fan of putting more stuff on Israel than just Israel or Israelite, but I understand why people do it. And with the African on there, could you speak on that? Because a lot of people got that as a misconception that, even if we go back to Moses, even when he came up out of Egypt, which is on the continent of Africa, the spiritual system started, coming to play after that at Sinai, and we know that's in Africa. So can you speak on that to those that's, ignorant of the fact?
Sure. We really only use the African to distinguish from the other side of the family, okay? And the reality, again, we are in Africa, that it is an African culture. Those who are clear about the dynamics of what it means that when Joseph being sold into captivity by his brethren and then later coming into Egypt and not recognizing their brother sitting in a place of high authority, the implications are very clear that Egypt was indeed an African culture, and that if Egypt was an African culture and civilization, then the ancient Israelites also were of the same appearance. That is why they have to draw the line somewhere around Nubia, somewhere between current Sudan and Egypt, to say that that's where Black Africa begins, and something different in the case of the ancient Egyptians begins as well. And so we have to challenge that. We have to challenge that. We understand that the ignorance of our people, the deep-seated teachings, the deep-seated psychological associations with white images growing up, and what that meant, and the tendency to reject that. I mean, I was one of those who had processed that the Bible was a white man's book and didn't want to hear anything like that. But when I started getting into it, and you start doing your own homework and research, and if you can come with an open mind, you realize that, wait a minute, this had to have been an African culture. And so, all I can say, Brother Carl, is that there was always the spiritual element that was present in my life, that when I look back, that it was a hand that led me here to the left or to the right when I could have easily gone over cliffs at those times in my life. And so without that spirituality as an anchor, so to speak, I wouldn't be speaking with you at this current moment. But we distinguish between, we use African in the sense that we are those that are like Yeshua in his time. We are first sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, and we find Israel scattered throughout Africa, deeper into Africa from this particular point. And so our first mission is to share this truth and to share the example that we feel that we have been able to pioneer here and be blessed with in terms of diet, in terms of culture, in terms of having access to the language and the kind of revelation and revelatory information that language, that the Hebrew language can provide for us. We feel that we have to share that with our brothers and sisters throughout the continent. So I've been a delegate to the Lemba conferences in Southern Africa, in South Africa. I've been a member of the International Society for the Study of African Judaism. We had a conference in Pietermaritzburg, South Africa. And so we'll mix it up with the scholars in those fields, but we also are out to get to the average person, the average brothers and sisters, as long as they are able to identify.
Okay, people, it seems as we having a problem with the connection, seeing that it, making that boob sound. The show might be getting a little too good for the, the powers that be out there. I would say that, So give us a little while. Hopefully the connection will come back up, and there you go. There you have it. He's back.
We're back.
Yeah. You want to cut your camera off?
Oh, okay.
Keep your camera on. There you go.
Super. I was about to say that, I spent quite a bit of time in West Africa, between Ghana, Togo, Benin. And when you go in the midst of the brothers and sisters there, when you're in the midst of the Ashanti and the Fanti tribes, and you find out that they circumcise their boys on the 8th day, that they separate their women on their menstrual cycles and after childbirth, when they say, I'm coming, and they say Meba, and we say Aniba. When they say welcome, they say Akwaba, and we say Barukaba. Boy is Benin, and boy is Bain in the Hebrew. Yafa for beautiful in the Hebrew, and Yefeh in the Fanti and the Tree languages. And so these are not some small similarities. These are quite important cultural linkages and contiguous kind of connections that make sense relative to the dispersion of our people. And so when you have the school of thought that wants to say that the Africans sold us into captivity, and therefore that's an adversarial relationship, we beg to differ, and we beg to distinguish between those who were involved in the slave trade. It's a known fact that Africans did indeed sell other Africans into captivity, those that were in West Africa. But when you match up the migration patterns and the relative arrivals of the migrating Hebrews from this area into West Africa, it's very clear that we were those newcomers that when whites arrived on the shores of Africa, that they needed black backs. And so if you've got a relatively recent newcomers into your area, and they're using up your resources, and they're trying to marry your daughters, etc., we understand why. Let's go sell them. We would have been considered somewhat of a nuisance. But remember now, we cannot forget the fact that we were driven out of this land, and we had a sword after us. It said, I will have a sword after you. And so our being able to, as refugees, you have two options. You go across a river, you go across a divide, and you seek help. And after a while, you wear your welcome out, and you're obliged to do one of two things. You can either go back where you came from, or you continue on your journey. And so going back into Israel at that time was not an option for us. And so by the time we wandered across North Africa, down the Nile Valley, down both banks of the Red Sea, down into West Africa. By the time we arrived on those shores, we hadn't been there very long before, again, that date with destiny, those slave ships, as Deuteronomy 28 and 68 had referred to, they were awaiting us. And so we bear no animosity towards the brothers and sisters who may have participated in the slave trade. And we hear often the statement that, well, Africans were already practicing slavery. Well, yes and no. If a son raped a daughter, then yes, he would have to go and work that off for X number of years. But if our brothers and sisters in West Africa had known the extreme degradation that awaited us in the Western Hemisphere, I really don't think that they would have participated in that. And even if they did, we have to keep in mind that this was all part of a prophetic rod of chastisement. And so we're not mad at anyone. I had an experience here, Brother Carl. I was on Mount Tabor, where Barak and Deborah, took on Sisera and the Canaanites there, and when where Yeshua in the I don't know if you're messianic or refer to even the so-called New Testament, but nevertheless, it is the mountain that Yeshua is said to have taken a certain private group of his disciples up on the mountain. And so I'm up there with a brother, and he's a pastor, AME pastor. This was about a year ago. And we're up there enjoying the view and just communing with one another, had a little snack. And so here come two Europeans, and pale as they could be. And we find out they're from the Netherlands. And so in the discussion with them, he says to me, he says, we were talking about the idea of great, what great meant. And someone, because they asked what city was the pastor from, and he said, I'm from the great city of Washington, D.C. I even kind of cringed at that. But the fella said, well, I thought the great city was Jerusalem. And so I'm just like, okay, now I like that answer. And so I said, well, great doesn't always convey good, but and I said, for example, the great slave trade. I said, it wasn't so good for me, but it was great in its impact and its significance in terms of global affairs. And so he hung his head and he said, yeah, he said, I feel really bad about that. He said, because my people were involved in the slave trade. And so I went back I had to bring him back to an earlier comment that I made. I said, I came out of Dimona. I'm a Hebrew Israelite. And so we believe that the original Israelites in this land were dark-skinned people. And so I said, well, remember what I said now. I said, but Moses warned our people that we would be carried away into captivity by ships. And so I was trying to make him feel a little bit better. And he's out of his own mouth, Carl, he says, yes, but Yah, and he said Yah. He said, yes, but Yah said we went too far. Now, we teach that. I mean, Obadiah speaks very clearly that had they come in and wanted to, glean our grape fields, they would have left some grapes for us, but he said that himself. And so I was like taken aback. I said, wow, I've never heard anyone admit that before. But that was his position. And so as we continued our discussion, they broke down and was crying like babies up there on the mountain. And I found it very interesting because as we walked away, me and the pastor shared with me, he said he was getting ready to leave when he first saw him come because he don't like associating with him. And so he said, what happened back there? We got these guys crying. Their wives was looking, trying to figure out what we had done to them to make him cry like that. And so I said, well, it's written exactly like that. He said, where? I told him, I grabbed my scriptures out the back seat, handed it to him. I said, turn to Isaiah 54. And where it talks about neither let the son of the stranger say that I'm a dry tree and that I'm disconnected from the people. And it goes on and says that a stranger, if they come in the proper spirit and manner, that they are entitled to a name and a place even greater than of sons and daughters. And so it really doesn't matter what our narrative is at the end of the day, because all of our narratives have holes in them. We have I think our narratives got a lot more fundamental secureness in it than any of these other narratives that I hear about that connect people to this land. Hands down, I feel that, of course. But at the end of the day, it's not about the flesh. What made Abraham the first Hebrew? It was his ability to follow the instructions that the Creator was given to him. And if we're talking about biology and genetics and DNA, we're talking about a Chaldean bloodline. If we're talking about it at the fundamental level. And so it's not about, our narrative, so to speak. It's about the fulfilling the function that we are to fulfill as Israelites, as Hebrews who crossed over to a higher understanding, as Israelites who are to be a light unto the nations, as Judeans who are to have their hands at the necks of the enemy and who are to be involved in the gathering of the people and preparing that way. And so we feel that we have been chosen in this dispensation to fill that role, and it's a heavy mantle, but nevertheless we feel that we were those who were made for this day. And so our experiences continue to secure us in that, and we love it. We love it. We love the life that we chose, and we look forward to any. In fact, we've had numerous visitors over the years, and those who come in firsthand knowledge, and they often have to just say in many circumstances, well, this is not what we anticipated it to be, and this is not how we were led to believe that it was. A recent brother I heard on one of his podcasts, he's still talking about Ben-Ami the bus driver. Well, that's so old. And that's, Ben-Ami was never a bus driver, never knew how to drive a bus. It was Prince Gabriel who was the bus driver. So he's relying on some information that some reporter got mixed up back in 67, 68, 69, and took a life of its own from that point. So,
well, let me interrupt you for a second. Now,
sure.
We're going to get into some more interesting, little controversial things. We don't have to deal with any group or whatever you done heard, or any outlet or whatever you done heard these things on. But have you heard about the controversy in America with the Comedics and the Israelites and this and that and all the back and forth and debates and stuff? And if you have, could you give us some insight from over there, and from what you have gathered from over there with your feet on the ground, and the things that you hear about the things that's going on in America between these two descendants of quote unquote Africans?
Sure. And I won't go into it very long. For us, it's not an issue. I think one of the big things, and I encountered this myself when I was in DC, and I had heard James Smalls, Professor James Smalls. I heard him speak, and at the end of it, I questioned him. Did he know about the community in Israel? He said that he did, and in fact, he spoke very positively and glowingly of what it was that we had accomplished, and he. Again, he and Asa Ahmadiel are really the only two that I know that really had that kind of a position of at least a general supportiveness. Although I think he's may have made some other statements. In fact, I know he's made some other statements. I've seen them on YouTube and what have you. To the contrary, but nevertheless, I had a relationship with Dr. Smalls that I felt was warm and genuine, and I think it was on that Pan-African level that we were able to interact. But as far as I ended up going to the sponsor of that particular lecture, and I asked about whether or not she was interested in having a spokesperson from the Hebrew Israelites to come and give a similar lecture. And she looked at me and she said, "Oh no," said, "y'all don't go back far enough." And so the issue seemed to be one that was stuck on chronologies. And we're not about to debate or question the fact that there are civilizations that precede ancient Israel. That's a known fact. The issue is not which came first. The reality is that ancient Kemet was a great civilization. We can't deny that. However, what was it that caused Kemet to fall? And when you begin to look at the influences, when you begin to look at the internal I mean, I think it's outright that you got to say it. There was some immoralities. It was a fall from values. It was a fall from the principles that made it great at one point. I mean, just like it's written, it says that righteousness exalts a nation. And so in that principle, it's clear that Egypt made some mistakes. Kemet made some mistakes. And so it's not about what came first. It's not about that there are precursors and forerunners of codified conduct, such as the 42 negative confessions versus the 10 commandments and what have you, or all the other commandments for that matter. Any civilization would have codified conduct. And so I don't find any that warrant us debating and arguing about. I would say, yes, fine, let's move on. And so if Kemet, and this is the, I guess, my closing argument, and always was with that particular circle of conscious brothers and sisters, if you feel that clear and secure in that Kemet is your foundation, and with the world of America, North America, and the Euro-American world collapsing all around you, then by all means go to Egypt, go to Kemet, stake your claim, and let's build on this side of the water. And so, but don't denigrate us for having made a move. I mean, we're all in the same land. We look right into Egypt at this particular point. We're neighbors, and so that's our position relative to that, Brother Carl.
Okay, so I would like to ask you like one final question on this hangout. I would like to, if possible, do like a 30-minute things with a couple people that would like to have, a conversation with you, or we could do it here. I just need your permission. I told them, I can only let other people on the panel in if you give, that olive branch out.
Mm-hmm.
So some good brothers. I think you know them already, but still I need permission from the guests.
Who we talking about?
A brother by the name of Knowledge Born Allah. He do the Knowledge Radio. And
right.
The other brother is Brother Ben. I can't think of the rest of it. The brother Ben. I think you know him.
Sure. No problem. I know of Brother Knowledge, and I know Brother Ben Kyle personally. No problem.
So I'm gonna send them a link. I could do it here. Ain't no use of starting nothing else. But my question would be for us, the community. I know it's a very political, hot topic going on over there now with the sister that had the tragedy passing, and I know it's people over here in America trying to involve themselves in it, and other people that may not be from the community. So if you could speak and on that and speak to the people that's trying to get involved in family business, I would say, or community business, then
sure.
I would like to give you the flow to do that, because I think with a political hot topic like that, and political relationships and stuff, that people should deal more with the community and allow y'all to do that. But I don't know your stance on it. That's just mine, and I'll pass the mic now.
Sure. Appreciate it. Indeed, it was a great tragedy that impacted the family and the community here. And as family, we do extend beyond the borders of this land, of course, and we recognize that, and we appreciate the concern of the larger Israelite family. But the reality is that when you come to this land, just as if you move from, I don't know what city you're in, by the way, Brother Carl, but when you move from one portion of the city to another neighborhood, the perspective changes, the elevations change, the views change, and the interests change in many ways at sometimes. And so it's kind of, we feel it rather presumptuous that anyone who's in the captivity, who's still on that side of the water, to think that they could come up with some better solutions or better ways to resolve the current issue surrounding the unfortunate death of our sister. And we simply asked that any protest and what have you be put on hold for the time being. We have a strategy that we've mapped out, and we're working through our plan and our strategy at this point. We're giving the opportunity for justice to come forth. We're not getting ready to lay down or accept anything that doesn't make sense. And in fact, we've made that very clear. We have raised the money. We've actually secured a lawyer. We've secured forensic witnesses and experts to pick apart the findings of the IDF in the circumstances surrounding her death. But we also wanted to make it clear that we're talking about a family here that's been very, 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 very devastated by the whole event, and not wanting to to feel that it becomes an issue to be co-opted, so to speak, relative to being part of the whole rights and expectations of Israelites to come to this land. I mean, they're related in some way, but that's not what I think our foremost concern needs to be at the particular time. And so we just simply ask that allow us to work through it on this side, and don't think that you might know a better way, and you're armchair quarterbacking from 4,000 miles away. And so that was simply our position on that. We appreciated the support, and there will be time that we'll reach out and say, okay, now's the time for a larger mass mobilization of press and public pressure and what have you. We've done those things before in our own history here, and we know how to pull those kind of things off. And so we would appreciate those who could just bear with us. And I think if some of them were to visit us and come and see from this side, I think that it might be beneficial in allowing them to see, okay, well, I see this now. I see their perspective, and I can see some things that I wasn't capable of seeing from that side prior. And so, that's basically the answer to that, Brother Carl.
Most definitely. And could you tell people exactly what the situation is? Because some people may not even know what we was just talking about. So I will let you explain it. I don't want to explain it. So could you explain to them exactly what the situation you just was talking about, what it concerns?
Sure. For the last 10 odd years or so, our children have begun to served in the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces. And they go in and they do their mandatory 2.5, 3 years. And one of the daughters, Sister Tovit, or our young Bat Tovit, was on her base on guard duty at that particular time. And she turned up, she was shot. She was shot and killed. And the preliminary reports of the Army and a later official finding of the Army had so many discrepancies in terms of the cause of the death. They wanted to rule it a suicide, and there are too many circumstances that call into question that don't make sense for us. It doesn't make sense, and so that's been our position. We rejected their findings, and we had a 60-day period after they brought their findings with which to appeal. We did do that. We are now locked in the process, and we wanted to allow that process to go forward before we went any further. If they can understand that justice hasn't been served in our view, and we do, I want you to know that we do have supporters in the land who are very much involved in the ferreting out of the details in the case. And so we're not going to just sit back and allow that to. We didn't allow the findings, as they said, was ruling that a suicide. We weren't satisfied with that. Daughters don't commit suicide like that. They don't. They may take pills. They may try to slit their wrists, but they rarely shoot themselves, and certainly not with a gun that she couldn't even reach the trigger for. So there are too many inconsistencies in their case, and and we know how to fight. We've been in the land now for 40, 47, 48, 49 years. We know how to fight, and we're very much engaged in a fight in this matter. And so, those are the details surrounding that. It was a great tragedy for us, needless to say, but we consider it to be a part of the. First of all, our serving in the IDF is a reality here in this land. We didn't feel good when Saddam Hussein started shooting Scud missiles here in the land. We would defend our land. We realized that our children were never even allowed to play with toy guns, and here they are in a military, and this responsibility is thrust on them at a fairly early age. But nevertheless, these are realities that we had to confront and we had to address and we have to bear. Meanwhile, brothers and sisters in the States, you have sons and daughters that end up in the U.S. Army and find themselves in Iraq and Afghanistan and God knows where else, and have no clue about what they're fighting for. Whereas here, we're in our own land, and we feel that it's imperative that we demonstrate our sincerity and willingness to defend ourselves, not just to the people of this land, but also unto the Holy One of Israel. How badly we want, how gladly we would serve to defend ourselves here in this land. And it would be rather disingenuous of us to not want to put up when it came time to defend ourselves here in this land. So we are, it's a reality that we had to take head on, and we feel that we've done a good job, and we've been spared. In many cases, we've had some miraculous escapes from and close calls and what have you. And we know that the hand of Yah has largely been with us. But when you're chastised, Brother Carl, and you remember this, when Mama or Daddy, got you with that belt or that little switch, you'd go in your room and you'd be bawling, and an hour later you would be sniffling. You'd be sniffing, and so we understand that, like it's written, it says that we would not go altogether unpunished in our return. And every now and then we have to cry again. We have to be reminded that the ultimate price has been and continues to be paid. But we ask each time, Father, let the price be paid on the way back to making up for what we gave up in losing this land. And so we're about trying to secure not just for us, but for all of those who identify with this land. This is a part of a process, and this is a necessary step in that direction.
Well, I thank you for that information, because as I said, I've been watching videos and seeing things go up, and I'm like, people shouldn't be trying to usurp this situation. They should let them deal with it. So I appreciate that word going out over the airwaves, even if they wasn't my airwaves. So I appreciate that. We got Knowledge with us. Ben should be around sometime or another. But peace to the brother Knowledge. How you doing? He'll click in, but
yeah, I saw him come in. I just want to say I appreciate that. Appreciate your position on that, Brother Carl, and look forward to a relationship and working together. To get the word out, to get whatever it is that we have to do to wake up our people and to prepare a way for them. Because from my perspective, Brother Carl, Trump or Hillary, take your pick. I mean, the end is here. In fact, it's already after the end, and so I don't know what we're waiting for, but I've continuously cried out and said, come out of her, my people, and the only way you can do it, sometimes you just got to set a date and just step on out there.
Yeah, step out on faith, as they say. That's the old saying. I don't know if Knowledge, if he's preoccupied or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I was surprised to hear that you even knew of me, and I guess that's thanks to me posting a lot of videos of brothers saying where he got a certain type of perspective or whatever that you know, warned me to even be looked at or, you know, considered, you know, as a brother, one to talk to and one to you know, even had the honor of having you on the show. So
Well, you know, I clicked on I think it may have been one, maybe two of your segments, and I found you to be very level-headed and intelligent, and those are the kind of people I gravitate to. But I don't have time to get involved in ignorant arguments, you know, and back and forth. You know, we have to shake our feet, shake the dust off our feet, and keep moving. I mean, I'm not about to spin my wheels with all that we have to do. We're not going to argue and debate doctrine and scriptures. We might share positions and what have you, and I'm open to perspectives but rather, you know, we're not going to get into a back and forth. And so I didn't feel that was the spirit in which you carried yourself and your program. And so when our brother Kananya said, you know, the opportunity presented itself, I jumped at it. I said, absolutely, sure, no problem.
okay. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the problems, as you said, come out earlier, is that we don't run any government around here, or we don't have a quote-unquote nation. And y'all have, you know, a community that wants all that. So when you're dealing with agriculture and, you know, sewage and food and, you know, all the different things it takes to survive and run your land, then no, you don't have time to, you know, play the Jeopardy games that sometimes come across the social media.
Well, you know, Ben-Ami long time ago was teaching a class, and he called it the burdens of freedom and the burdens of slavery. And what he was saying was that one way or another, our people are going to carry a burden, you know, and that he actually warned that the conditions that our people were facing in America and around the globe, that those conditions were going to increasingly worsen, and that in one way or another we were going to carry that burden. We could choose between the burdens of freedom. We could step out on our own, walk out on the water, and bear the brunt, or like you said, to be responsible for the education of your own children, to bear the responsibility for the growing of your own food, for the governing of your own communities. You were either going to bear that freedom, that burden, the burden of freedom, or you were going to bear the burden of slavery. And you were going to drink that water in Flint. You were going to drink that water in Newark. You were going to eat that garbage that's on the shelves of those stores across America, the GMO food. You're going to bear the burden of unfair and hostile policing. You're going to bear a burden one way or the other. You're either going to bear the burden of freedom, or you're going to bear the burden of slavery. And so Ben-Ami prepared us long ago for self-government, self-sustaining. We're not playing government over here. We're not playing house. You know, we have a ministry of divine agriculture. We have a ministry of divine preventive health. And when these challenges come, when we have illnesses, our doctors are the ones that we count on to give us the go-to remedies and the diagnosis, you know, for what it is that we have to do. When our sisters are in conception, they have to put their lives in the hands of the team of divine midwives that we have here. That's not a small measure of one's faith, you know, to put yourself in the hands and not to go to the hospital and so forth. And so, you know, what we've been able to do is actually to lay the groundwork for a government. It is a government. We are a government. The kingdom of Yah is a government of men and women who are governed by the principles and values of the Holy One of Israel. And so we've laid the foundation for that, and at this point it's just a matter of expansion and replication. If the foundation's done, and if you have a working model, you know, the sociologist Robert Merton long ago said, he said, if you have 1,000 failures in the laboratory of the social scientists, if you've got 1,000 failures of all these programs and throwing money at different things and what have you, and they all fail, but if you found one working model, he said, find out what made that work. Throw all the rest of it out. And so give us our mark. Give us our mark in terms of what we've been able to accomplish. And we're very proud of it. And we feel like, you know, it's an open opportunity. It's an open campus to come and to look and learn and say, okay, what made you successful in health? What made you successful in the teaching of your children, or dedication as we prefer to call it? And so then take the principles and then apply. Find out where can you apply them back in your own communities. And so when these Ghanaians and these Togolese and these South Africans and Zimbabweans that visit us annually, when they go back to their lands, when they go back to their towns and villages and families and ministries, they are bringing what we've been able to pioneer, and they're looking at how they can then apply them in their reality when they get back where they're going. And it's the fulfillment of Isaiah, the 2nd chapter, that we shall go up to the house of the God of Jacob, and he shall teach us of his ways, and we will then walk in his paths. And so that's the next step, is the application. And so we're glad to be part of that process, Brother Carl.
Okay. We got Brother Ben in with us. Welcome to the chat, bro. Knowledge, when you get a chance to mute, I don't know what's going on. Please.
Yeah, I've been here. I just didn't want to disturb the alchemy that you brothers had going on, so I respectfully had to mute myself.
Alchemy, all right.
Ben, how you doing? Can you hear us?
I can hear now. It was a little bit jumbled a second ago.
Okay, do me a favor and turn your camera, whatever way you got it, up and down or sideways, turn it the other way so, yeah, you can fill out the screen. There you go. That look a lot better. Now, y'all said y'all wanted to speak to the brother. If nothing else, say hi to him. We can turn it off now, but I know y'all want to do more than that. But
nah, that's quite all right. This is enough for now. I'm him. Shalom, sir.
Shalom, Ben Kyle. Ma shalom ka.
I need Mitsuyan.
Hallelujah. Good to see you. Good to hear you.
Likewise, good to hear you. Glad you out here. Definitely. In cyberspace, so to speak.
Right. Ain't nothing but a tool.
Okay. So are there any projects this year coming up for the MOI? Any big stuff coming down the pipeline?
Well, Ben, I was talking. I'm trying to remember who told me, but they told me that you were due to come up. I was really anticipating your coming. Danielle told me, and so I was looking forward to us sitting down and actually strategizing on how we can get some of these things out the pipeline and on the table. I have no less than 10 projects personally that are very, very valuable, I feel. The Sacred Visitation book, the museum. You're aware of the museum, the African Edenic Heritage Museum. To have that out. Numerous different writings in health and a comparison of the two worlds, the world we came from and the world that we're building here, how they sometimes converge, how they sometimes collide. But the fact that they're two very different worlds of themselves. And so I got a lot of stuff on the pipeline. I'm trying to get away and get into I plan to go to our guest house in Arad and spend a couple weeks and get some quiet time to actually sort out, where I'm going with one and get some momentum started. Even plan on going to Jericho and have Sar Ahmadiel and one of our Afro-Palestinian brothers who lives in Jericho to search out a guest house, maybe an Airbnb deal down there in Jericho. Got some nice properties down there. I want to go and just relax and get some of this done. And so definitely got a lot of projects, and that's just me talking. That Sar Ahmadiel's got more. We'll be conspiring, so to speak. We'll be collaborating on the audio visual portion as well.
Okay. I'm just today about to acquire some equipment in that wise. I'll be there early September. I messed around and missed peak season, waiting on some resources, but I'm coming in like first part of September as soon as those tickets go back down.
Great. We'll be waiting for you.
Yeah.
Make sure to send me the dates so that I can make sure that I'm free and we can have some quality time to plot and strategize.
Now, with
Absolutely.
that, let me ask a question because it came from the panel. It's two questions. One brother want to know how easy it is to come over. Do you need a passport? Obviously, I think you would need one. How do Israel recognize, I guess, American citizens, and do they accept, you know, certain people, whatever? And what would it take for someone that, I guess, doesn't proclaim to be an Israelite to, if nothing else, like you say, visit, you know, and then, you know, wage their situation if they want to be a part of the community and say they Israel or whatever, due to the experience or whatever. So
Right.
could you enlighten them on that?
Sure. You absolutely got to have a passport. And anybody in 2016 that don't have a passport is not clear on the times that we're living in. The price of passports has tripled in the last few years, and it's liable to continue to get more and more expensive, and you're very much liable to actually have restrictions placed on your traveling. And so you definitely need to get the passport. Make that a priority if you're serious about getting out of Babylon and getting anywhere at this particular point. And so the state of Israel and America have a very, very close relationships in the sense that you can travel here without a visa. You will receive a visa on arrival as an American citizen. You will get pretty much an automatic 3-month visa. And so we have visitors all the time from all around the world. And it's a small thing for them or us to say, yeah, we have visitors coming from the U.S. and they're going to be our guests for the next 3 months. We are an urban kibbutz. We have training programs that will allow for different exchange programs to take place. We have a youth conference later in the year. In fact, in the next couple of weeks, we have a youth conference going on where we have youth coming from Texas and Atlanta area and Florida and other parts of the globe, in Ghana and South Africa, etc. And they'll come for a month at least and immerse themselves in what we're doing here. The reality is that if you come in on the 3-month visa, you do have to extend. You have to apply with the Ministry of Interior to get an extension. They may or may not grant it. I don't know the circumstances in which some have been refused extensions, but it just would behoove you to keep in mind that you know, who are the guardians of the gate at this particular time, and so there's criteria that they look for, and it's not to say that any deals have been made or anyone sold out or anything of that nature. Quite the contrary. We're permanent residents in this land, and many of us now have citizenship in this land. And we feel that in the coming days that the right and the legitimacy of the connection of many of the other brothers and sisters throughout the world is coming to the fore, and they're going to have to deal with that and open the doors a little wider to accommodate those who are again knocking at the Africans who are knocking on Israel's door. And they're going to have to get over the fear, Brother Carl, Brother Ben, Brother Knowledge. They're going to have to get over the fear. We understand the fear that they have. The fear is based in the reality and the historical record of how they have treated us. And the fear is rooted in the idea that when we do come to our rightful place, that when we do ascend to our position at the head of the nations, as we are prophetically to be, that when we come to that point, that they fear that we will treat them as they treated us. But we are bound by the laws, and the laws that require that there's one law in this land for stranger and homeborn alike. And so that's the position relative to that. And so we feel that our position is on truth. Our position is on the law and the prophets. And they may not like some of our positions, but nevertheless, our positions being rooted in truth, they won't be fighting against us. They're going to be fighting against a far superior power if they try to buck the requirements and the criteria that the Holy One of Israel has laid out for living in peace in this land.
Now, it's another question. Another brother asked, how much American history, like the history of what America has done and stuff, and even, I guess you could say y'all travel over there, as you just gave us, a discourse on that. How much American history do y'all teach the children over there?
I'm sitting in my Ministry of Information library at the current moment, and we're stocked with volumes and volumes of different writings on the civil rights movement, on the history of the slavery era, etc. We're well versed, and the children learn that. We teach that, obviously, and we always get refresher courses, and we're always watching the news so that you're clear that we know what's going on. We know what happens in Ferguson. We know what happens in the different neighborhoods. We just watched what took place in Orlando, and how many of those were Hispanic brothers and sisters that seem to have been targeted. And so we're real clear on the history, and we don't let our children forget, where we came from. We are mindful of that. It's painful to forget, and we are commanded not to forget, and that's why we have Passover, and we recall, the legacy of what we endured. We don't have a perspective in our generation. You and I don't have a perspective per se for what took place in ancient Egypt, but we sure have a perspective for what took place in America in that 400-year captivity, and we never allow them to forget. We're mindful of the Nat Turners who was trying to get to Jerusalem. I just somehow believe that he didn't connect it up all the way, that the Jerusalem, which was the town in Virginia at the time, now since changed to the city of Cortland. I just somehow feel like he felt that had he gotten to Jerusalem, that everything was going to be all right, that he would be back home, and he would have that kind of power and strength that went with being back in your home space. We don't forget those things. We don't forget the Henry McNeil Turners or the Marcus Garveys. No, we're very, very plugged in to our history, and will not forget that, and won't allow this next generation to forget it either. And we tell them all those things, and sometimes, unfortunately, you know how it is with children, got to experience it themselves. It'd be much easier. Prince Shaliak used to always tell us, he said, experience is not always the best teacher, but sometimes you have to go through that in order to really learn the lesson properly. And so they go and they visit America, and 99 out of 100 times when they go visit, they come back quickly.
Yeah. I think another one is, who's the new leadership over there? I guess people they don't know who the leadership is or how the leadership works. I muted you also, Ben, so when you get an opportunity, just unmute yourself. But I guess that's the question on the table right now. Who's the new leadership?
Good question, Brother Carl. Just a word about Ben-Ami's leadership. We regarded Ben-Ami as the messianic or anointed personage of this dispensation of time. His mission, even stated at different points, his mission was to raise up the messianic people. We feel that was always the charge of the anointed leadership throughout our generations as Israel, that we from time to time were blessed with anointed personages, but the objective was always to raise up the children of Israel to be that anointed people that the world was waiting for. And so Ben-Ami was never one who, he didn't feel that his mission was to lay out some program of succession. And we don't feel that he should have appointed a successor. He never did, but he did establish a throne, a government structure here. We have our Holy Council that he was the chairperson of. He was the chairman. We affectionately called him the chairman. He laid out the Holy Council, a body of elders, elder brothers, who the princes, who set the policy for the kingdom, for the community, who are the highest order at which decisions are made. But under them you had your ministers, divine ministers, and my portfolio being information, we dealt with the day-to-day affairs of the government structure. You have agriculture, you have transportation, you have education, or what we call dedication. You have distribution that deals with the welfare of the brothers and sisters, the fact that the need for food, clothing, and shelter, to ensure that those needs are met and that they are met equitably across the spectrum of the kingdom's population. And so the day-to-day affairs were dealt with at the ministerial level. And then under us you have the crowned brothers and crowned sisters, and they are the sergeants. They are the master sergeants in the platoons who have the pulse of the rest of the members of the community, and who can first of all know what the issues are and know what the problems are, and step in and resolve them. And only when they can't resolve them, then they bring it to the ministers, and only when we can't resolve it do we bring it to the princes. So we have a cadre. We have the prophetic priesthood that deals with the counseling of those that are seeking to get married, and the performing of the marriages and the circumcision. And so we're well equipped and established to run this kingdom, to run this government structure, to solve problems and to move forward. And so we're very comfortable with in the absence of the physical presence of the one that we called our Father, affectionately our Father, our Holy Father, Ben Ami. What would we call him, who had the vision, who laid the groundwork for this? He was the father of the community. He's not the Father in heaven. We're clear about that. And we've heard over the years that some said that we were worshiping Ben Ami. No, we never worshiped Ben Ami, but we did acknowledge and respect his having been the chosen vessel for the deliverance of our people in this dispensation of time, and for the establishment of the foundation of the kingdom, of the government structure. So the government is very much intact, and we continue to forge forward. We've been well taught, well trained, and pointed in the right direction. Ben Ami was never the sole source of many of the revelations and revelatory kind of evolutionary growth and ideas that you know the spirit of the children of Israel. We are multi-talented people, but what Ben Ami was a producer to create an environment, to create a system wherein these good ideas and these great talents that our brothers and sisters have could bear fruit. And so that's what this environment is. That's what we call this community a sanctuary, wherein the principles of God reign supreme, and where when you have those interests at the fore of what you're doing, Yah will smile upon it, and we continue to move forward based on that vision. We're happy, we're pleased, we're proud to have been a part of the fact that Ben Ami gave us 5 decades of unwavering servitude. We're humbled. We're humbled by that. What are you looking for? Oh.
Okay, well, knowledge, you haven't spoke yet, so if you want to speak, anybody else got anything? Y'all on the chat, so join in if you can.
Brother Knowledge, I understand you're on the West Coast.
Yeah, he's up in Seattle.
In Seattle? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm in Washington.
Washington. Me, myself, I'm currently in Arkansas, but, Chicago's my birthplace, so.
Wow, you're in Arkansas. What city?
It's called Parkin, 30 minutes out from Memphis.
Okay, I used to come up and down 40 a lot, and I remember stopping once in Brinkley.
Yeah, Brinkley is like probably 20 miles headed west. So
Okay.
Ford City, you probably know Ford City. You know, that's where the federal prison at. So you come back east about 15 miles from Ford City, 30 miles from Brinkley. But yeah, Interstate 40 run right down 75, 64.
Right. I only remember Brinkley from having a tire on my trailer that burst, and I had to get the tire replaced because I was getting to Houston with the exhibition that we the Hebraic exhibition that we move around with, and brother told me, "Oh, you can come right down the road. Follow me. It's right up the road." And I didn't know that in Arkansas that right up the road means 30 miles. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Back yonder can be real back yonder.
Right. Right.
So.
What do you do, brother Carl?
Well, me myself, I just make YouTubes right now. I was working for Hino Motors. They're a big time Japanese company. They do the Toyota parts and stuff. But
right.
They discriminated against me. You know, they thought I was a Muslim, wasn't eating pork and stuff. And so once you live with somebody a Muslim, you know, with the negativity out here, you know, I eventually had to leave that job. They got rid of me. But since then, I've just been on here trying to do my best to wake our people up. You know, most of the things that I teach and the doctrine that I bring forth, people don't really have a liking to it, but I still got to teach what I got to teach, whether if they hear it for bait, as it's written. And, you know, hooking up with brothers like Knowledge and Ben and D-Red and, you know, Pit Boss and Kanaya and so on and so forth. I know you know Harry Rosenberg, and I've been trying to hook up with him and Mark, David Mark, and different people, trying to reach out to people over there and bring, you know, y'all life experiences and stuff to the people. You know, YouTube, they pay good when you do good, and I've been doing decent, so I make a penny or two off that. But as you know, living in the South, you know, I'm like in a third world country, I guess you could say. All I gotta pay is like gas and water. And as long as I don't use too much of that, it don't take much for me to live. So I'm loving it down here, but I'm trying to, I guess, get over there with y'all and travel around America and spread this news and wake people up, because it's been a conspiracy, and I think it's government agents to myself that been pushing this Black Hebrew Israelite thing in a real negative way, and that's why I stated earlier I don't really add nothing to Israelite or Israel. I just try to keep those names sanitized, and you know, try to wake people up to the, you know, the grafting in and the sojourning with Israel, as you spoke about earlier, and things of that nature, more of the spiritual aspect. I'm a firm believer that Israel is a name that came from on high due to a spiritual transformation when he wrestled with the angel that he thought was God. And it's a spiritual transformation. It's not a physical thing. We are the children of Jacob, but we may not be the children of Israel, who is the Most High, one of his names. So we might not be of the household of Israel, but for sure we are the household of Jacob. So that's, you know, that's my that's been one of my burdens, to carry that to the world. And, you know, sometime I get a, you know, negative disposition from most of the brethren and sisterin out here that you know, come from different doctrinal thoughts on matters like that.
Well, brother, when you know, to take on that responsibility, that calling, that mantle, we already know the job description. You know, that ain't something that too many people aspire to, given the track record of Israel and those who endeavored to be that kind of a voice in the midst of the people. We're the ones that got stoned and slain, you know, and so we certainly you know, understand the loneliness of such a calling, but nevertheless it's one that we have to we're made for this day, brother, and I'm just heartened and very, very, very much appreciative and blessed to have made your acquaintance in this manner. And I want to assure you that when you come, that we're going to lay out the red carpet for you, so that you can see the magnitude of what you and what your people have accomplished, and the realities that lay ahead of us, and the greatness of the vision, the greatness of the prophetic blessings that are in store for us. And so I'm looking forward to being able to see your face in person, and to embrace you wholeheartedly. And I want you to know, to stay strong, and know that your brothers and sisters here are, we got your back and front. Okay. But it's an honor for me. It's an honor for us, and I look forward to furthering the relationship.
Most definitely, most definitely. I'm trying to see if these other guys want to talk. I guess they camera shy. You got to unmute your mic.
Oh, that's right. Kananya got to go to work, and I'm on his phone. We on his phone, you know.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. Y'all want to get something in. Ben, you got to unmute yourself. You got to figure out how to work that phone.
He's given a 10-minute warning over here on this side.
All right. Knowledge.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask one question. I'm pretty sure if you familiar with the brother Maury Kanaya, you know we had the Voice of Zion on Do the Knowledge Radio, and it was a very, very impactful, proper presentation of the interconnectedness between the land and here in the States. So in honor of that hidden history that's kind of been shielded from our material view, I wanted to ask if you would do us the honor of coming on Do the Knowledge Radio to kind of speak in the same manner in which you spoke about Ben Ami, to familiarize our listening audience in sort of a dedication type of format.
I'd be most happy, Brother Knowledge, to oblige you on that. I personally have a philosophy. I like to answer all or respond positively to all invitations, but I would be most happy to oblige you on that. We can just get together and set a time, and if you want, you can set a framework for the kind of questions you might want to ask, and we can set the date and do it.
Okay, most definitely. And I thank you for your time in a very, very fruitful and masterful presentation.
Thank you.
Real loud.
Hold on, is my volume? Just a second, y'all.
Yeah.
Technical difficulty.
Well, we can hear you. Just go ahead and speak on time.
Okay, all right. This is what I wanted to ask, kind of in light of, our concept of the power to define, and just the function of the Ministry of Information. I'm going to quote by you real quick from Edward Bernays, the guy that's the basically the father of the public relations machinery.
Right.
From Propaganda, his 1982 book. The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. We are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes, forms, our ideas suggested largely by men we have never heard of. This is the logical result of the way in which our democratic society is organized. Vast numbers of human beings must cooperate in this manner if they are to live together as a smoothly functioning society. So the question is, in light of the power to define, can we take this process and reverse it? Can we use the same things that they've used propaganda? Can truth be assigned as propaganda, basically?
Can truth be what?
Can truth be assigned or utilized as propaganda? Would that be propaganda?
Well, you know, in Hebrew, my title is Sar Ahmadiel. Hasbara, actually one of the 5 definitions, is propaganda.
Wow.
They muted. Did someone mute their mic? We okay now? We clear? So,
Okay.
that echo.
All right, well, I would say that's a great show, people. I know y'all brothers got an opportunity to talk to each other on the back lines and stuff.
It's a real bad echo.
Yeah, that's being.
Tell Ben to mute his mic so Sar can say his last piece.
All right.
Yeah, hold on, let me.
All right, well, I'm going to say the mic is the honored guest, and when he finish out and say peace, then he speak for everybody on the panel.
I'm sorry, what did you say, Brother Carl?
I said, well, I'm going to give you the mic. You're going to close us out, and when you say peace, you speak for the whole panel.
Okay. No, on continuing that last thought, indeed, without question, propaganda got a bad name. Propaganda is simply information, and we are charged to put that word out. We do have the power to define. Ben-Ami taught us very well, and when we talk about spiritual warfare, we know that an adversary has seized the high ground, and in any warfare, you attempt to seize the high ground. You want to have the advantage. You know, if you got a mountaintop, you can run out of bullets and you can run out of bows and arrows and what have you. But if you got that high ground, you can roll boulders down on an adversary. So it's a very, very important point. And so all high ground is also where what you need for your communications. You set up your communications, your transmission towers, your radar systems, and what have you. They're on the high places. And so in a spiritual warfare, what are the high places that we have to commandeer? Ezekiel said, aha, even the ancient high places are ours in possession. And so the definitions, the very definitions of what is a good life, what is heaven, what is hell, what is I mean, we can go on and on with the kind of things that have been seized by our adversary, religion versus righteousness, etc. And so the war is clear. The battle lines are very, very clearly drawn, and we have to engage on that level. We can no longer shy away from putting the idea of God and spirituality on the back burner. We can no longer be afraid of offending someone. There are times when, you know, in the effort to save your brother and sister, and you warn them, hey, your toes are in, don't want to step on their toes, but they're in the way. And so we understand that if our problems are spiritual, and certainly if you want to argue that our problems are political and economic and educational, with all of the degrees that our people have and all the money we have, and with all of the resources we have around the globe that are supposedly ours, why are we still suffering? If you want to argue that case, that's fine. I'm not going to argue that with you, but we perceive that our major problem as a people is that of our relationship with the Creator, and that's a spiritual problem. And so in taking back that power and in plugging back into the source of that strength, we had to engage. We had to engage, and we had to talk about these issues that we used to say, well, we don't want to offend nobody, and we're all serving the same God. No, we are not. And until we begin to face that head up and discuss these things in honesty, in truth, and be willing to accept the new directions that you might have to embark upon when the answers come, we're not going to ever get out of the mess that we're in. And so, you know, we as men, you know, we come, let us reason together. It's that kind of time. It's that kind of thing. That kind of a time in the world. It's that kind of time in the African, those in America. If we don't make some radical changes right now, brothers and sisters, it's over. It's over. And we have to take that kind of firm stand right now and draw the line somewhere. Other than that, you know, I'm not getting ready to have my children worrying about what bathroom they can go in, whether the male or the female bath. We're not getting ready to go there. That's not an issue that we're looking forward to having. And certainly, you know, so I can go on. That's another whole can of worms that I probably just opened up. But nevertheless, again, finally, we appreciate you on that side, and we look forward to seeing you on this side or somewhere in between, somewhere maybe in Kenya or Ghana or South Africa rather. South America is actually a bit too close for our comfort, but we feel that these lands in Africa, these are the lands in which the Creator has blessed and sanctified to be the springboard for the new humanity that has to come forth in this dispensation of time, and that Israel here at Northeast Africa, we are that light, we are that guiding light that all the others will have to guide on if they want to be delivered out. And so with that, as you said, I'll say peace out. Thanks for the opportunity and look forward to the next time, brethren.
Peace.